President Park Geun-hye has returned from her 5-day state visit to Vietnam. During a meeting with Vietnam's president, the two leaders held discussions about a bilateral FTA and the development of nuclear power plants. Presidential Office correspondent Eoh Jin-joo reported from Vietnam with stories about President Park's sales diplomacy. In addition, reporter Hwang Ji-hye prepared a feature story about economic exchanges between Korea and Vietnam. She provided analysis on the long-term bilateral relationship which began in 1992. Former President Chun Doo-hwan was indicted and fined in 1997 for accepting bribes, creating slush funds, and for causing a rebellion. For the past 16 years, the former president has been holding back payment of fines amounting to some $153 million, which stirred up a national debate that also involved the National Assembly. Amid the controversy, the Chun Doo-hwan family made a statement apologizing to the Korean people and announcing the family's decision to pay the amount through real estate and high-priced artworks. Reporter Myung-kil brought us the news. The Korean people have become sensitive about the safety of Japanese marine products following the recent problems at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. So Korea has banned all marine products coming in from Japan's Fukushima region. The recent event has created anxiety among the Korean public and has had a direct negative effect on Korea's fisheries markets. Reporter Yoo Li-an brought us details on the government's efforts to provide accurate information and reassure the public. There are many people who work late into the night or early in the morning. In order to provide better transportation for these people, the Seoul Metropolitan Government has introduced a night bus service. Reporter Connie Lee visited the Seoul Metropolitan Government's bus policy team to learn more.
인터뷰를 어디서 하면 되나요? 좀 배경이 조금 좀 애매한 것 같아서 뭐 그러면
책장 있는 곳은 혹시 없나요? 네? 꼽아져 있는 책장이요.
책장이요?
The night bus trial runs attracted much attention because they were scheduled to start official operations in a few days.
이제 서울 심야버스는 이제 어떤 계기로 시작하게 됐는지 좀 간단하게 설명해 주세요.
아시다시피 서울시가 24시간 경제체계로 돌아가다 보니까 심야에 이동하는 이동 인구들이 많습니다. 그 막차 시간 끊긴 다음에 대중교통 불편이 많죠. 택시밖에 의존할 게 없다 보니까 그래서 요 불편을 해소하고자 그 심야버스를 도입하게 됐습니다.
그러니까 먼저는 이제 택시 사용할 수밖에 없었는데 이제는 버스 사용할 수 있으니까 물론 택시 기사들은 좀 싫어하겠네요.
물론 이제 택시 업계에서 좀 반대가 있는데 저희가 볼 때는 오랫동안 버스를 기다렸다가 또 장시간 이동하시려는 그런 분들 이용하고 특성하고 택시처럼 빠르게 단기간에 돈을 지불하시고 비싼 돈 주면서 하시는 분하고 분명히 틀려 봅니다. 그래서 버스나 지하철에 의존도가 높은 분들 그분들이 주로 심야버스를 이용하시고 또 택시는 택시 남대로 또 이용하는 계층이 또 따로 있다고 봅니다. 그래서 큰 영향은 물론 영향은 좀 있겠지만 택시에도 우려하는 만큼은
Well, the Seoul city government has been running 2 bus routes as a trial to see if there are a lot of people who needed to take these buses and a lot of people who like to take the buses during the wee hours. And so we thought, okay, we got to go out during those times and to see and shoot for ourselves just how many passengers are getting on these owl buses.
4 days prior to the first day of actual routes, Connie visited a public bus garage.
7개 확대하는 것이 목요일부터 12일부터
네.
하는데
13일 0시부터요.
13일
0시부터.
0시부터
예.
확대하는 날짜 같은 날짜에 다 확대가 되는
네.
거고.
동일한 일정.
13일.
예.
그럼 아예 그냥 서서 여기 찍고
요금 내는데 앞에 서서 거기서부터 시작해도 돼요.
이게 찍고 얘기할까요? 찍고 아니 내가 걸어가요 중간쯤에. 근데 중간쯤에 하면은
안 자빠지게 해.
나 안 넘어져.
같이 타면 돼.
오케이, fine.
N37?
네. 이거는
The night bus parked at a dark corner of the bus depot gets ready to move. The night bus is marked with numbers that come after the letter N for night. The buses are being called owl buses.
기사님 성함이 맞나요? 권식이요. S-I-K? 이럴까요 그냥? 권식. 절 보면서 그냥 편하게 말씀하시면 돼요. 네. 그래서 오늘 몇 시쯤에 기사님은 집에 도착할 예정입니까?
여기 12시에 출발을 해가지고 한 바퀴 갔다 오면은요, 저희 이게 한 3시 50분? 집에 도착하면 5시 한 30분 정도 됩니다.
되게 늦은 시간이네요.
Drivers have been hired specifically for the night bus hours in order to keep the passengers safe.
정리하다 보면 집에 도착하면 5시.
At the stroke of midnight, the first run begins. First, the Arirang TV camera team shoots the moving owl bus. Then the crew moves quickly to a bus stop location where many passengers are expected to get on. Connie is planning to get on board as well. Minutes later, the owl bus arrives. The owl bus is full. It is so packed that it's difficult to move around.
It was actually my first time taking these owl buses, and I wasn't so sure if there would be a lot of passengers inside because it's late at night in Seoul. But of course, Seoul is a city that doesn't sleep, and so there were actually a lot of passengers who were getting on board, especially in the Gangnam area or very high populated areas. And so we were actually inside the bus and we thought, we would have a lot of time to shoot and film, but soon enough there were too many passengers that were packing inside the bus, and so we weren't able to film for a good, I think, 30 minutes because there were too many people. And so clearly there is a demand for these buses, and clearly a lot of people have found these buses very useful. 내용을 딱 그대로 그냥 카메라 앞에서 할 수 있나요? 짧게. 우리 영어 방송이라서 그냥 부담 없이.
친구랑 같이 놀다가 늦게 귀가하게 돼서 택시보다는 좀 저렴하고 집 앞에까지도 갈 수 있는 심야버스를 오늘 처음으로 이용하게 됐습니다. 네. 저렴하고 좋네요.
peak time for the night owl bus is between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. In the moving bus, Connie has to do a stand-up quickly without disturbing the passengers. It's going to be a difficult task.
It is around 1:30 a.m. here in Seoul, but as you can see behind me, this night bus is full of passengers. 둘, 셋, 넷 하고 할게요. It is past 1:30 a.m. here in Seoul, but as you can see all around me, this night bus is full of passengers. Actually, my first idea for a stand-up was to talk about the fare price, just to mention that it was 1,850 won, or about $1.70, which is much cheaper than a taxi during those hours. But I saw once inside the bus, I wanted to show just how crowded it was and with the time. And so I actually downloaded an application on my cell phone to show the time in large font, so the camera can grab the clock. And so I thought it was a good idea to kind of show the time and the people around me. 끝까지 왔어. 몇 시에 떠나요, 여기서? 55분이요.
After 2 more hours of riding with passengers, the owl bus that Connie boarded arrives at its final stop. Connie and the camera crew take a short break, then head to a new location.
방송 싫어해요. 죄송해요. 저 찍히면 안 돼요.
네, 그럼 개인적으로 그냥 물어볼 수 있나요? 뭐
네.
근무하다가 타시는 거예요?
대리운전하고 있어요.
아, 그럼 늦게 이제. 우리 스탠드업 한 번 더 해볼까요, 선배? 이제 2시 넘었으니까.
Despite being tired, Connie insists on doing the stand-up one more time.
It's past 2 a.m. here in Seoul, but as you can see behind me, this night bus is full of passengers. 좀 아까보다 낫지 않아요?
노권 전철역입니다. This stop is Korea Electric Power Corporation.
Connie wraps up the shoot inside the bus and gets off at the next stop, where she spots a taxi stand outside.
혹시 기사님 들어보셨어요?
심야버스.
네, 심야버스요. 그거 혹시 심야버스 때문에 기사님한테 뭐 영향이 있을 건지 있는지 좀 물어봐도 되나요? 해외 그냥 짧게 10초 정도 나가거든요. 그래서 영어로도 나가요. 그래서 목소리 더빙으로 나가거든요. 그래서 짧게 부탁드릴게요. 선배!
네?
네. 그리고 서울시에서 심야버스를 운영하게 됐는데 기사님한테 어떤 영향이 될 것 같은가요?
글쎄요, 뭐 아무래도 심야에 그 택시 손님들이 조금 줄지 않을까, 예, 그런 영향이 있을 것 같네요.
그래서 반대하는.
글쎄요, 뭐 시민들한테는 뭐 도움이 되겠지만 택시업에 종사하는 사람들은 예, 아무래도 좀 영향을 많이 받을 것 같아요.
네, 감사합니다. 감사합니다. 네, 혹시 성함이 어떻게 되시죠?
Connie wraps up her coverage on the story one by one. It's after 3 a.m. when she finally finishes her work.
끝이 보인다, 끝이 보인다. And so I could see why people are choosing to take these night buses, and I'm sure a lot of these people are very glad that these buses are expanding. And actually, a survey by the Seoul City government showed that 88% of the people are in favor of these night buses. And so I wondered, for my story, who are the, around 10% plus of the people who are not in favor? And I saw that it was, the taxi drivers who make business or who make a lot of good money during those times because there aren't other public transportation services available from 12 to 5 a.m. So it's unfortunate news for taxi drivers, but of course most Seoul residents are in favor of these new Aoh buses.
It's morning and there are only 2 days left before official operations of the Aoh bus.
I'll tell you about a new bus service here in Seoul that could be very useful for all you night owls and early risers.
Connie, we are about to have buses to see buses that operate into the wee hours of the night.
Well, you're absolutely right. Seoul is a city that does not sleep, so it's not that surprising that the city government has launched. The city of Seoul is currently
The story included the reporter's hands-on experience riding the Aoh bus with computer graphics that provided useful information about the 9 new bus lines.
2 a.m. here in Seoul. But as you can see behind me, this night bus is full of passengers. The trial run of the first 2 routes was a success, with more than 2,000 passengers using the bus each day. The bus routes go through some of the most populated areas of Seoul, like Gangnam. I'm glad I got the story out because I realized that not a lot of people knew about this night bus system or this night bus service. And so I got a lot of reactions from different people who were interested in taking this service. And I think overall I'm pretty pleased with my report. I've never done a shoot that late before. I mean, shooting started at midnight and we didn't wrap up until 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning. But I think overall, the shooting went well, all the interviews went well, and overall the report was very informative to people, especially to people living in Seoul. And so I'm always glad if my report can help anyone in any way. And I hope, not only will Seoul residents be intrigued by this new bus service, but I'm sure our viewers abroad will also be intrigued with Seoul, that there are that many people who are in need of this bus service even during the late hours into the night. So just to show that Seoul is a city that definitely doesn't sleep.
We've met before, yeah?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah.
Good to see you again.
I'm Myung-kil.
Cheers.
Yeah. So, have you looked at the questions?
These are revised. I haven't seen the revised ones. They seem to be roughly the same.
They're roughly the same.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
모든 병원에서 유사환자가 접수됐답니다.
홍반매치 차집입니다. 이 아파트에 무슨 일이세요?
제 형이 이 아파트에 삽니다. 317호.
Why are we doing this now? Because we've actually been talking about a growth in Korean film industry for some time.
Yeah, it's kind of a continued growth, and so it just kind of remains in the news. Particularly August was like the biggest month ever for Korean cinema.
Oh, really?
So yeah, there were just new records.
It suggests we thought it hit a ceiling when we got the Snowpiercer and all those stuff.
Yeah, so
that's gonna be it.
It's the biggest month,
Based,
and it's all local. So it's being driven. The growth is being driven just by local productions.
And we're gonna have some points of contention when we talk about Snowpiercer.
Yeah, well, bring it on.
Did you read the graphic novel?
No, I haven't. I'd like to pick it up.
Do you want it?
I can get it in French, so I should actually buy it in French.
Snowpiercer, I didn't like it.
Yeah,
That's okay. I loved it. I was a big fan.
It works better if you're a foreigner coming in to watch a very surprising product out of Korea.
Well, I think ideally people will go into it. Things people will go into it not even realizing it's a Korean film for the most part.
Right.
It's a Korean film.
Right.
Some of the lines would have worked.
In Korean.
Yeah, in Korean, but it just did not work.
You mean some of the English dialogue?
Yeah. Many of them, actually.
I think, I mean, we've had a few directors who've gone and done their overseas stuff this year, Kim Ji-hoon and Park Chan-wook, and I mean, this one's been the most successful on a lot of levels for me anyway. Particularly with these, you know, Korean director directing foreign actors. It was very it was somewhat stilted and Stoker.
Anyway, I'll talk to you later. You guys should wrap it up.
Yeah, Piers, actually, I've allocated 6.5 minutes, but you know, judging from how Daniel is so excited about this segment, I think we should give like 10 minutes. But yeah, he's a movie lover.
Certainly is.
Do you think there's the Koreanness in these Korean films, and do you see?
Why they're doing so well at the moment?
Just do you see something Korean in Korean films?
Oh, absolutely. That's pretty much why I'm here. Korean films. Why I like Korean films so much is because even before I knew anything about Korean society or history, you know, 10 years ago when I started watching these, I could feel there's some weight to these films. It adds this kind of gravitas. You know, films like Memories of Murder, Silent Chok, and all that. They're very good genre movies, but there's something more to it. There's a depth. There's a richness that kind of stems from history and society. And kind of there's this kind of pain, there's this suffering from the difficult history the country has had, and that kind of it's exercised through these great genre films, and I've always felt that, and that's still happening right now. So we see that in films like The Terror Life talks a lot about the difficulties in the workplace, and Sumbakkuk Hide and Seek talks a lot about these issues of the consumerism, and there's this contrast between the coveted high-rise apartments that people want, and the older parts of the country would rather forget. And so it's all very clever, and it adds impact to the film. I probably saw 500 Korean films before arriving in Korea.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm always happy to watch more Korean movies. You know, like after this, I'll probably go home and watch another Korean film. So that's what I like to do. I'm lucky I get to do that in a professional setting.
For a living, yeah. It is spot 8 in New York, 10 in London, 6 on a Wednesday evening in Seoul. Welcome to Eoh Edition 600. Stronger plot lines and bigger budgets than ever before. Well, just when it seemed like Korean cinema may have reached and passed its golden era, new records being set and broken on a regular basis.
That's right, and to tell us more about the continued growth of the Korean film industry, we have film critic Piers Conrad, editor at Modern Korean Cinema and correspondent at Twitch Film.
Piers, it's great to have you with us on the studio.
It's great to be back. August is always a very strong month for cinema in Korea. I mean, schools are out of session. The weather's really hot. People want to go somewhere that's air conditioned.